If you spend any time in the tech world, you've heard these acronyms thrown around constantly. SLI, SLO, and SLA. I mean, they sound almost identical, right? But here's the thing. They are the absolute bedrock of keeping any digital service reliable. If you get them wrong, you're basically flying blind. But if you get them right, well, you've got a powerful framework for success. And in this explainer, we're going to make sure you get them right. Look, at its core, this whole thing is built on a super simple 3-step journey. That's it. First, you have to measure what's actually happening with your service. Then, based on that, you set a target for what you want to happen. And finally, you make a promise to your users about what they can realistically expect. Measure, target, promise. Everything else we talk about today just builds right on top of this simple idea. So let's start at the beginning, the foundation of everything, the measurement. In our world, this is called the service level indicator, or just SLI. And SLI is all about answering one single fundamental question. It's not about what we hope for or what we say in our marketing. It's about this. What is the objective, data-driven truth about how our service is performing right now? So what is an SLI, really? It's just a number. That's it. It's a direct quantitative measurement of how your service is doing. It's not a feeling, it's not an opinion, it's the raw, cold, hard data. It is the evidence of your performance. Let's make this real. Think about any website or app you use. A super common SLI is just availability or uptime. Is the service even on? Another big one is response time. How fast does that page actually load? Or maybe you're tracking the error rate. What percentage of the time are people getting an error message? These are all perfect examples of hard, measurable SLIs. Let's just stick with that website example for a second. Let's say you go look at your monitoring tools and you see that over the last month, your website was available 99.6% of the time. That number right there, 99.6%, that is your service level indicator. It's a fact. And this is maybe the most important thing to get about an SLI. It doesn't have an opinion. A number like 99.6%, is that good? Is that bad? The SLI doesn't care. It's just a fact. It simply reports on reality. It's the what is, not the what should be. Okay, so we have our measurement. We know the reality. Now what do we do with it? Well, this brings us to the next level up, the service level objective, or SLO. This is where we take that raw data and we start to give it some real meaning. So if the SLI tells us where we are right now, the SLO is all about defining where we want to be. It's the shift from just observing the facts to actually setting a clear internal goal for your performance. An SLO is an internal goal for your team. And that word internal is so important here. This is the target that your engineers, your DevOps folks, your site reliability engineers are all aiming for. It's how you, inside the company, define what good actually looks like. And here is where it all clicks together. Let's say our measured SLI is that 99.6% uptime we just talked about, but the team has set an internal SLO, their big goal, of hitting 99.9%. You can see it right there. There's a gap between our actual performance and where we want to be. Now this gap, it isn't a customer crisis, not yet. It's an internal signal. It's a flashing light for the team that says, hey gang, we're not meeting our own standards. We need to focus on making this thing more reliable. It's what drives action and helps prioritize work. And that brings us to a really critical point. Failing to meet an SLO, that has internal consequences. Maybe the engineering team has to pause work on cool new features to focus on stability. But, and this is so key, it does not automatically mean you've broken a promise to your customer. That broken promise, that is where the final piece of the puzzle comes in. This is the very top of the pyramid. This is the part your customers actually care about, the service level agreement, or SLA. The SLA answers the most important customer question of all. What is the absolute minimum level of service that we guarantee you'll receive? And, maybe more importantly, what happens to us if we fail to deliver on that promise? So now, we're not talking about some internal team goal. This is a formal contract. An SLA is a binding agreement between you and your customer, and it always has teeth. Real penalties, like getting financial credits or refunds if you don't deliver. Okay, this is my favorite part because this is where you see the genius of the whole system. You set a really ambitious internal goal, that's your SLO, at say 99.9%, but the actual promise you make to your customers in the SLA is intentionally a bit lower, maybe 99.5%. See that space in between? That's your safety buffer. It gives your team room to stumble and miss their internal goal, while your actual performance, your SLI, can land right in that buffer zone, keeping your promise to the customer totally safe. If there's one thing you tattoo on your brain about an SLA, it's this. It is the line in the sand. It is a formal, legal promise to your customers, and if you cross that line, there are real, tangible consequences. All right, we have defined all the pieces of the puzzle. Now let's put them all together and see how they work in a real-world scenario. Let's imagine an online bank. The engineering team is measuring the actual uptime, and they find out it was 99.7% last month. That's their SLI. Now, the internal goal for the team, their SLO, was to hit a much higher 99.9%. And finally, the contract they have with their business customers, the SLA, promises a minimum uptime of 99.5%. So what's the verdict here? Well, first, they miss their internal goal. That's a red flag. The team knows they have work to do. But, and this is the important part, because their actual performance of 99.7% was still higher than the 99.5% they promised in the SLA, they kept their promise to the customer. So what's the result? A bunch of internal meetings about how to improve, for sure, but no angry customers and no penalties to pay. That's a win. We've covered the whole framework from the ground up. So let's just boil this all down to the one simple core idea that you absolutely need to remember. If you remember nothing else from this, please remember this one line. The SLI is reality. It's what is happening. The SLO is your ambition. It's what you want to happen. And the SLA is the guarantee. It's what you promise customers they will get. Reality, ambition, guarantee. It's as simple as that. So here it is, the nice, clean summary you can use in your next meeting. The SLI is the metric you measure. The SLO is the internal target you aim for, and the SLA is the formal promise you make to your customers. Look, understanding this hierarchy isn't just about knowing some fancy acronyms. It's about having a shared language for reliability that lets your teams make really smart, data-driven decisions balancing innovation with stability. And now you're ready to be a part of that conversation.